when the first chains met the first graves. Before the 300 were forced onto a ship, before iron touched African skin, the land they would be sent to was already bleeding. When Christopher Columbus arrived in the Caribbean in 1492, he did not discover a new world. He invaded one. The islands were alive with indigenous nations, Taino, Arawak, Lucayan, people who had cultivated the land for generations, who lived without chains, who were not white people who did not know that Europe had decided they were expendable. Columbus wrote of gold. He demanded obedience. And when the native people could not give him what he wanted, he answered with terror. Hands were cut off. Villages were burned. Women were raped. Entire communities were worked to death in mines and fields under the Spanish encomienda system. Within decades, millions of indigenous people were dead, killed by violence, disease, starvation, and despair. The land was not empty. It was emptied. And when the native bodies could no longer endure the labor forced upon them, Europe made a decision that would scar the world forever. They turned to Africa. That is when the 300 were taken. They were not brought to a new world. They were shipped into a world already soaked in indigenous blood, a system perfected through native suffering and now expanded through African enslavement. The same logic that declared native people savages declared Africans property. The same hands that held swords against indigenous nations fastened chains around African ankles. The ship carrying the 300 followed routes made profitable by genocide. When they arrived, they stepped onto land haunted by absence. Where indigenous villages once stood, plantations rose. Where native children once played, enslaved Africans were forced to work until their bodies broke. The land remembered who had been erased to make room for this system. Subscribe to get the full history.